with my site with DeAndrea, and DeAndrea has been a guest on my show, and I've been a guest on her show for quite a while. She's one of the premier MNN producers, and really highlights how precious MNN is. She and I actually don't agree on the 9/11, so we've haven't done much work since, but I mean, I'm sure we could resolve it. It's just time being what it is. Anyway, PatiencePoet found our word, and yeah. Rabbit Hole Central.
Hiya, honey, it's me.
Hey, Harold.
Watched program, getting myself ready to go out. Thought I'd check in, as is my schedule.
Yeah.
Every noon, it's the Rabbit Hole Central. So how are you?
I'm good. Any quick comments? Because I'm expecting a call from a lady in the child abuse courts in San Bernardino.
Nothing really,
but
there's a lot going on, just put it that way. But one of the things you told me about, a thing where you can get data on hits on your site and that sort of thing.
Right. Let's talk about that.
I tried to look it up, and I did, and I was going to send you...
Don't have the traffic.
Yeah, that's right. YouTube's all over the place. It's huge and everything, but it all gets ARPANET, you know.
Say, Harold, I have another call, Harold.
Okay, go get him, honey.
Bye.
I'll talk to you later. I'll send this link to you, and we'll be in touch. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Give me...
So, hello, Rabbit Hole Central.
Hi, this is Patience.
Oh, Patience, God bless you. What I'm doing is I'm going to put up your YouTube site, and maybe, let me just start by saying I noticed that you have one of my favorite commenters 3 months ago. His name is Blasting Caps, and he said, "The first memory I have of a social worker is some dolled up college kid coming in my mom's house trying to tell me what to do in front of my mom, who I also didn't listen to. I was 14, you know, that golden age of obedience, ha ha ha. Anyway, I ended up getting locked up because I wouldn't go to school. I would walk to the bus stop and just keep walking. So basically, I got stolen by the state because I didn't want to go to school. No crime." So I just thought I would introduce that because on your site, you look to be like a really super mother, and you seem to be concerned with other mothers who are also really good, and fathers, and for some darn reason, they're not getting their children. And so I thought maybe we could depart with that. Start.
Well, the situation with DCFS starts with the fact that they have no internal affairs department.
Can you talk about what's DCSF?
Department of Children and Family Services, Child Protective Services, Children and Family Services. There's many names for it, but basically the people who can come into your home without a warrant, go through all your stuff and take your children for no reason whatsoever, and there's nobody to complain to.
Right.
The problem sits, with kids need to be going to school, period, end of story. And if a parent is not making their kid go to school, in some way, shape, or form, some people can homeschool their kids. There is a law for that, but, they do need an education if they're going to succeed in society. And I think it is abuse if you're not going to take your kid to school. However, there are those knuckleheads, and you really have to work with them. And, that golden age of obedience, as that chatter said, it's not a good idea to just come in and think that, you can make somebody else's kid go to school. A lot of these parents that get their kids taken away, they just need some maintenance. You know what I mean?
Right.
Someone, maybe some parent education classes, and they'd be fine. A kid is 2/3 more likely to be raped and murdered in foster care, severely abused, not just like a little, smack on the butt or something. I'm talking about severe abuse.
Wow.
And sometimes murdered in foster care than they are with a maintenance plan for their family. And DCFS is not going for those maintenance plans for kids under the age of 5, mainly.
Can you kind of recount your story and what's going on with you and your child quickly?
Huh?
Hello?
I have 3 kids. I'm sorry, I'm smoking a cigarette as I'm talking to you.
Okay.
It's a thing that I picked up after losing my kids.
Oh.
Very stressful, of course. Well, I was a single mother. Okay, judge me if you will. All 3 of my kids have different dads. I married young to the wrong guy. I left him, and he filed for custody, and because he was making money at the time and I wasn't, He got custody. The court was ready to give me back custody after I had my 2 other kids, and everything was going fine. I'm a very attentive mother, very active in the community, even before my kids were taken away by DCFS. I had a church, I wasn't, a Bible-thumping, you better believe God, or, you're a bad person type of Christian, but,
Right.
I had stability. I worked 60-plus hours a week. Yes, that was my downfall. I took my kids to work when I could, but when I couldn't, I used a babysitter. I had a weekday babysitter and I had a weekend babysitter. Can't work my weekday babysitter, 60-plus hours a week, Otherwise, I'm a loser. And I'd had her since my daughter was 2 months old. And she's in my videos. You'll see the little girl who gets... My daughter caught the brunt of it when she went in foster care. I'll tell you what, I think because she didn't like the foster mother.
Uh-huh.
And she was used to actually being cared for, fed, clothed, cleaned, those types of things. The foster mother just wasn't savvy to that.
Now, I have a picture of your child. I think it's your child, and it looks like a welt on the arm.
Oh, my daughter. Yeah, it looked like the one on her elbow, the one right next to her elbow. It looked like somebody snatched her up. And there were coinciding bruises on her buttocks that day, but they wouldn't let me take pictures.
Yeah, they wouldn't let you take pictures. Wow.
Oh, yeah, they of course I'd look at them and say, screw you, and try to go for it again, but then when they would threaten to end the visit, I'd get scared.
But it doesn't seem as though, how are you going to connect with these people? Because it's very frightening what happens when you take loving parents away from their children. Why are they so thirsty for these children? What's happening to the children? Is it just sort of impoverished foster care parents that need the money, or is there anything worse going on?
There's some worse things going on. There are bonuses for DCFS workers. I couldn't validate it before because I wasn't 100% sure. I have since seen a check to a social worker to the tune of like $1,800 for the adoption of a child.
So now, when the children are adopted, where are they going?
They're going to their foster home, and they're staying there. They're keeping them like it's as if it were their child.
Oh, so in other words, the $1,800 check is sort of fueling somebody in the foster home that then allows them to get more money from the system?
No. The $1,800 check went to the social worker for finding just the right home for that foster child. What happens is, it starts out like this. Let me explain the process.
Okay.
DCFS gets a complaint, or they're supposed to get a complaint. I've heard of stories where social workers will troll the maternity wards and look for anybody under the age of 23 who had a kid that's alone.
Wow.
Yeah, it's that bad. They're that thirsty for kids. Okay, but anyway, long story short, CPS comes and they make a complaint against you. Okay, and they remove your children. If your child is under the age of 5, you should be terrified. Absolutely terrified, especially if you're a good parent, because then you're going to get the worst. And they're going to give you an impossible plan to follow. They're going to call you within minutes of your so-called weekly visit and say, okay, I need you across town in 10 minutes to half an hour, or we're just going to write down that you don't want to see your kid.
Wow.
Okay, you do that, a lot of parents lose their jobs, then they have no place, then they're really screwed by the time they get to court. DCFS at the last minute will say, okay, well, you were supposed to have 40 hours of parenting in this class. You can't just take a parenting class, you have to take their parenting class. And it's really a piss-poor class, trust me, I took it.
Uh-huh.
And anyway, long story short, what happens is, with this impossible plan, DCFS is able to terminate parental rights. Okay?
Uh-huh.
Even if you get it complete, they can still pull it and say, well, we don't ever think that they're going to be a good parent, based on their opinion. It doesn't matter what a psychologist says. It doesn't matter what a parent educator says. That social worker with just a master's degree, which is not even a real master's degree, they don't have to take the math and English like you and I do to get our degrees.
Uh-huh.
They go to like a tech school, and they just take their social work classes, and then they're good to go. Okay, their word holds better than a doctor.
Wow.
If a doctor says that child is uninjured and the social worker says that kid is injured, the doctor's word gets thrown right out of court.
I see. So Patience, what's the bottom line? Who wants these children so much?
It's not that they want the children. Social workers are motivated by money.
I understand, but where's the money coming from that's paying them off?
Taxes.
Taxes?
Mm-hmm.
So,
This is coming out of our money.
but somebody has access to that. How do they justify sending an $1,800 check to a social worker for meeting their quota, I guess?
It's not meeting a quota. It's
Or their
just
commission.
a bonus check. They get other things for meeting their quota. You know, it's not like the police's quota. It's just, hey, you know, you do your job, we give you these kids, you place them, you follow up on them, whatever. You are supposed to work with the parents, but they, you know, they do or don't, depending on how. Not all social workers are bad, but you know, and they get their monthly check of, you know, 5 G's or whatever they make. Okay, some make more, some make less. It depends on how long they've been working for the system and where they're working and whatnot. But when that social worker has found just the right adoptive home for that child,
Uh-huh.
that, you know, when the adoption is finalized, that social worker gets a check cut. It's a bonus for being a good social worker, I guess.
Oh, I see. So in other words, this is how the system can get abused. What it's supposed to do is reward for a job well done.
Mm-hmm.
But it works the opposite. Let me tell you something you probably don't realize. In India, there's something called a dowry. And a woman, upon, you know, reaching marriageable age, to show that she comes from a loving family that cares about her, anyone that marries her, she's going to have certain household items and, you know, a lot, sometimes even given a house. Well, oddly enough, something that's supposed to protect women starts to backfire because women are actually killed so that the husband can go on and get another wife and get another dowry.
That's horrible.
You know, so
I heard
yeah.
about that. I didn't know that they killed the women.
They kill them. They burn them, and it's quite a horror. I have a friend who did something on my video on my site. You can go to one that's called Lakshmi Burning, and Lakshmi is the goddess of wealth, and it has two meanings. One is that the goddess of wealth is furious, and the other is that you're burning the goddess of wealth. You're destroying exactly what should be moving you into abundance, which is the protection of women and certainly the protection of children, because children are the hope of the future of society. So,
And didn't we screw ourselves with those women's rights?
but anyway, what do you see as some solutions? Because you've worked at this so long, and you're very you're a practical woman.
I have a solution.
Okay.
Okay, the police department, if a police officer pulls you over and abuses you unnecessarily, okay, you go to their supervisor and you complain, and that supervisor is not making you happy. You can, especially if you feel as though it was a racial issue or a sexist issue or, you know, whatever, abuse of power, you can go to the Internal Affairs Department for the police in your area. They are a geographically removed office, and what's great about that is that they don't spend time together. They're not buddies.
Uh-huh.
You know, so this independent party can come in and investigate complaints. I think that if DCFS had something like that, an independent party to come in and say, you know what, you weren't at my barbecue last summer. You know, you're not my buddy. Our kids don't hang out together.
Right.
You know, I'm going to investigate this fairly. I think that would be a wonderful solution. It's part of it, at least.
Right, right.
You know, if some of these social workers were held accountable for lying in court, you know, if a social worker lies in court, it's perjury, right?
Now, the social worker will lie in court for the sake of the bonus and the quota and the reward or whatever?
All day long.
What's that? All day long they do it for that reason?
Yeah. Sometimes a social worker may feel as though, you know, you'll get one with a savior complex, where they'll be like, oh, I'm psychic and I feel that there's abuse going on in this home, even though there's no abuse, and they'll make something up. Some of them are doing it for what they think is a good reason, you know, but most of them are doing it for the money.
Right, right, right.
You know, and like I said, you know, their word holds higher than a doctor's, and that's fucking insane, pardon my French.
Right.
It's insane.
But so far as you know, there's nothing really horrible like children being recruited into pedophile rings or anything like that. You don't know.
Actually, yeah, yeah. You
do know about that?
Yeah, I've got someone with me who happens to know about that.
That to me is really scary, because when you have the very leaders that are supposed to protect the future of society actually preying on the innocence of what needs to be protected so it can be cultivated and grow into maturity in a strong, responsible way, that to me is, it's beyond the pale.
Another thing is that they give guilty parents back their kids.
Yeah, I know. You know DeAndrea's story, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that one very well, and it upsets me.
Yeah, right.
It's horrible. It's so sad. They'll take, and with her it was because her husband was a cop. It was because I've seen that happen. The blue wall is strong.
I have a feeling it's for even deeper reasons than that. I don't think it's only that he was a cop and a detective, and that's why I have grave concerns. I mean,
she doesn't take any BS, and
exactly.
When a parent doesn't take any BS and their kid is in the system,
yeah,
you take a parent who says, "Okay, you're wrong. I know you're wrong. And I'm going to hold you accountable when I get my kid back, and I'm going to sue you for the damages that my child and my family have received because of your ignorance, because of your God complex." Then the social worker will, usually they'll threaten you first. They'll give you a warning. Oh, we're going to put your kid in a horror house, if you don't, comply, and don't you dare talk to the media or you'll never see your kid again. But generally, once a parent threatens to sue, they're never going to see their kid again.
Really?
Yeah. Well, because the only way when you sue for the damages your child has received in foster care, you're suing in lieu of the child. You have to be that parent's or that child's guardian.
Right.
So they're going to make sure that you're never going to be able to sue them. They like their jobs. That comes down to just basic survival. That's no great big government conspiracy. That's humanity.
Well, then along those lines, it's very important to create connections of empathy with the social workers. Let's hope let's hope that 95% of them are just really, trying to do the best they can, living under all of the pressures, trying to get their kids through college and all of that. My scare,
most don't even have kids.
What's that?
Most don't even have kids.
Well, my fear are ones who would, when you talk about the horror house, that they would know the horror house, and that would be something where you've essentially got sex slaves. You're turning the children into sex slaves. That's very disturbing to me.
Yeah, it's disturbing to me too. There's only so much that we can do about it. The media, unless you have like video footage, and even then, they don't want to touch it.
Right.
And that's one that I'm still trying to figure out. I've got 3 media outlets that are going to basically publicize all the proof that I have in a single day in an effort. We're working in conjunction with 3 police officers in my area to get basically a whole office of DCFS, I guess 70 to 75% of the social workers that work there, arrested on the same day when my book is published. Everything has to coincide because, you put it like this, okay? Remember when the spokesperson for DCFS was arrested for a pedophile ring?
No, I'm sorry, I don't.
In one of the states, I don't remember which one, because I hear so many stories. I get so many horror stories, and trust me, they're all that bad.
Yeah.
Okay, almost every single one of them is that horrible. Well, the thing is, this guy was running a pedophile ring with the kids under his care. He was a spokesperson for Child Protective Services. Well, they arrested him, but DCFS is still not changing because that was just one person, and they said, oh, well, we got rid of him, so the problem's solved. No, the problem's not solved. It's in the way that it works. The system itself needs to be changed. DCFS doesn't need to be shut down. It needs to be improved. They need accountability, checks and balances. That's what we're American.
It sounds like
we have a right to know where our tax dollars are going, what's going on. I am for hanging. If you abuse a kid, you need your butt kicked. I'm sorry. You need to spend time in jail. You need to be punished for your crime. And you know what? Abusers don't deserve their kids back. But the problem is, DCFS, a lot of these abusers aren't even going to jail. DCFS wants to take the, police departments have a child abuse investigation, a couple of detectives in every police department, where they investigate criminal acts against children. Well, DCFS wants to take that power away from the police. That's wrong.
Yeah.
These people need to be held accountable. See, if DCFS takes that power away from the police, they'll be free to do whatever they want.
Now, Patience, I know you're patient, and you're a hard worker and you're practical. And I know I've seen the trauma you've been through, separated from your child. But I also think that ultimately punishment doesn't work. So I don't think it's holding models of vindication and punishment that's going to get us as far as we can get.
Well, if a social worker were punished for lying in court, right now, if a social worker lies in court and they're caught by the judge, and the judge is actually, going to say, hey, wait a minute here, I'm not going to go with that because that's just so far out of the, reach of normal that, whatever, it's just a, ha-ha, I caught you, I'm just not going to agree with you. They don't actually get busted for it. They need to spend jail time for it. If they were busted for lying in court, they would be more careful about lying about people.
So there's no social worker that's lied that has spent any jail time?
Not to my knowledge. I'm not going to say it's not true, but I don't know every single court case. I know a lot, but I've never heard of a social worker serving any time or getting any kind of deduction in pay or anything like that for lying.
Right. Now, I certainly think that the abuser shouldn't have the child back. That's for sure. But it does seem to be a power game. If they've got more power and they can control more judges, they get the children. And that's...
Yeah, but if you're talking about abusers getting their kids back, there are cases where... Because a child, like I said, is 3 times more likely to die, to live a horrible, to be raped and murdered and left in the gutter in foster care. Okay, so, 2 times out of 3, if you can fix that parent, there are some parents, and I've come across them, they say, you know what, I spanked my child too much, or I used a belt, or I did it wrong. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Or I yelled at my child, I called my child's name, and I was wrong. And counseling can fix that.
Oh, well, I'm very encouraged that, so you do believe in rehabilitation?
Yes, to some degree. I do not ever give a pedophile back, their child, ever. I don't believe in that, but, pedophilia, I don't believe it could be cured. I would never trust a pedophile to have their child back.
Uh-huh.
Things like, in severe cases of abuse, that it is documented, it is, solid, you got an 11-year-old pregnant with her father's kid, you know what I mean? No, don't give that kid back. Hang that guy by his, what.
Right, I know, but at the same time, you also give a really graphic image of being raped and put in the gutter with... Why does that happen in foster care?
Because they're not their blood.
Oh, I see. So
it's a cultural thing. It does depend on if your foster parents... See, these foster parents don't go through good psych evals. They don't see... In order for anybody to get their kid back from DCFS,
mm-hmm.
even if you were innocent, you have to go through a mental eval to see that you're fit. You have to go through all kinds of things. Even if you've never done drugs before in your life, you still have to get tested for drugs. If you smoked pot once when you were 15, 16 years old, they put you on drug rehab for a year or 2. Even if you haven't touched drugs in 15 years.
Wow. What's going on with you right now? How's your case progressing? When will you be united, or are you united with your child now?
I'm not united, and this is not looking good. I am on appeal. The governor's office wants my proof, and I've given them some, but some of it has to be held back, and I'll tell you why, because when I contacted the DA out here in San Bernardino, she was more interested in how I got the evidence as opposed to what the evidence was.
Why is that?
Because, God, it sounds so paranoid, but they're in on it too, okay?
No, it doesn't sound paranoid, but this is why I like to hold really, really high models of healing. I think pedophilia can be cured, but it can only be cured, quote-unquote cured, if we have much, much deeper knowledge about our sexual nature than we do. We live in such incredible ignorance of our body and of how people grow up in shame and so on. But given that I hold those high models, I certainly wouldn't be for taking a person who is dangerous and threatening a younger person who can't protect themselves. You've got to protect the vulnerable and the weaker. But If you
Totally.
can't...
That's why I'm all for a DCFS that's clean and straightforward.
Right.
Due process.
Yeah, so if you show that you're a straight shooter, you're not trying to hurt anyone or harm anyone, you're just trying to correct a bad situation and take everybody to a better place. Because I just simply can't imagine how in a marriage, how, say, a father having sex with his child instead of his wife, how that can be a happy situation for the wife, for the father. I mean, something is so amiss. You see what I'm saying? So if you're having compassion for all of them, the mother, the father, the child, that seems to me a platform upon which you can start to progress and have a breath of a chance to start attracting helpful energies around you. And people say, you know what? Patience has a chance to make it. And not only, do I want to help her get back with her child, maybe the good vibes will help me in my life to find something better.
That's not how these social workers live. The majority of them are young girls, 19, 20 years old, haven't met very many that are over 30. Very few have children of their own. Very few even want children.
Really? That's sad.
And, almost none of them choose to be foster parents themselves.
Oh, really?
They don't like kids. A lot of them just don't like kids. It's just a job. When it becomes a job, see, that's what I'm saying. Pay social workers well, but grade them sternly.
Uh-huh.
They should have a lot of checks and balances.
It's just that there seems to be some fundamental trauma in the system, and that's what I'm trying to address. Because
Yes.
I was very attracted to your work because you're fundamentally a very optimistic person, and I know in DeAndrea's case, she too came from a family from a good, wealthy, well-to-do family. So she was a woman of a lot of confidence, and she wasn't easily pushed around, and so she stood by her principles. But sometimes when you're too judgmental, it's too much coming at you. And that's when I think, to have this idea that judgment is God's and that it's just for us to be faithful to each moment and try to be as helpful as we can. Like there may be a social worker that you encounter and you can connect with her in such a way that maybe you get her over her shock and trauma that then leads her to not wanting kids.
Well, I'll tell you, if DCFS comes knocking at your door and you can't get away,
Uh-huh.
you can't save your children from the trauma of being introduced to a social worker,
Yeah.
what you need to do is make friends with that social worker. If you don't make friends with that social worker, they're human. They're going to hold anything against you that they can. They will use their job to get back at you.
But what I'm trying to say, Patience, there's another part of human nature that's a good part. They're human.
So, I know there is. The thing is that we're so out of touch with that.
Right.
That's not a realistic thing. We can't just heal everybody overnight. And for right now,
That I agree.
Adopting from the system, I say it's completely wrong. Don't ever adopt from DCFS.
Okay.
Not a willing adoption. Don't do it.
Okay.
Okay. But the problem is that there are so many kids who should be adopted from the system. I agree with that. But the problem is you never know what you're getting.
So what would you suggest to a couple that can't have children and they really want children? What would you ask them to do?
Find a willing adopter. Find somebody who's adoptee. Find somebody who's willing to give up their child. A teen mother, somebody who wants to.
I see what you're saying. Instead of going into the system where you never even get to interact with the parent that very much wants their child back. That's what you're saying, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
At least until we could get things sorted out.
Right. Okay, well, along the lines of...
Then, adopt kids from the system. But until then, don't do it because you're creating a market. You buy the product, you're creating a market for however they want to get it. You're supporting how they get the product if you buy it.
Okay, well, what I really commend you is in your sort of trying to clean it up. So I'm very eager to stay in touch with you on that. And if you can, keep us apprised of your progress, I'll put this up on my post and let's see what happens, okay?
Okay, I've got the co-founder of Serena's Angel, Pastor Bobby, here. Would you like to talk to him?
Sure. I've only got 3 minutes left on the tape, but let's do it.
Okay, here he is.
Okay.
Hello.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Can you talk about your work?
Yes,
I run a ministry for the protection of women and children. I
Uh-huh.
run an online church. It's called RHMS, which is Revelation House Ministry Services. And I had met patients over at the Child Protective Service office where my case, I was divorced about 5 years ago from my ex-wife. Her whole family was involved with drugs and everything, and I kept pleading with her to get away from the situation and let us move to another state or something, get away from her family. She wouldn't do it. We divorced, and the court, of course, gave her custody of the children, the state of California, and I was back in Texas, and about 1 year and 8 months ago, they arrested my ex-wife for drugs. They called me from Texas. When I got here, I went to court and thought I was going for her arraignment, and they were going to give me my kids, and I was going to go back to Texas. It didn't go that way. They went on hearsay from a social worker and the parents and family of my ex-wife, who said that I knew of the drug problem and everything, so the state charged me with neglect and failure to protect my children from the mother.
Say, what do you think is the solution? We only have 1 minute left.
A solution would be to, like patient said, put in checks and balances and everything. I think we should have a law in place and stuff. I've been working on one called HR 1130, but a law that basically puts them under check and balance, and if the parent that is not at fault for the situation where the kids are taken should automatically be awarded the kids. If they don't have anything in their background and stuff, they should be awarded the kids, and the kids should be with that parent.
Well, thank you very much for giving your input, and I would definitely want to stay in touch with patients and people like yourself who are pushing for these kind of changes. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you, and God bless you.
Yeah, God bless you. Bye.
All right, Paula.
Bye. So there we go. I will post that and see what kind of ideas you have out there. I'm interested in the practical. And so a mother and her child, there's something very practical about keeping that connection going. And if I didn't mishear what Patience was saying, it seems as though the child-parent relationship is the most sacred. So tell me what you think. This is Paula Gloria, and this has been an episode Farther Down the Rabbit Hole, streaming to you Monday, June 9th, 2008.